Well, thank you all so much for joining me and joining the rest of us today. So what I'm going to do today is share a project that the Division of Child Support undertook utilizing human-centered design. Before I go into kind of that project share, I wanted to give everybody a high-level view of what human-centered design is and the phases that are involved. So let's see. There we go. Okay. So we'll first start with what human-centered design is. It is a process that starts with the people you're designing for and ends with new solutions that are tailor-made to suit their needs. It's all about building a deep empathy with the people you're designing for, generating tons of ideas, building a bunch of prototypes, sharing what you've made with the people you're designing it for, and eventually putting the innovative solution out into the world to be used. So human-centered design has 5 phases. And before I go into the phases, I want to kind of go over that you may see that the phases move forward and backwards. And that's really important within human-centered design, because what you may find is you'll move to one phase and then realize you don't quite have the whole idea of what's really going on. Or you need to refine that a little bit more. So being aware that you can move in and out of these phases pretty quickly. So the project team, fell in love with this aphorism of fall in love with the problem, not the solution. Don't get set on a solution that you have in mind, fall in love with that problem. So the first phase is our research and discover phase. And in this phase, what we're going to do is we're going to be gathering valuable information about our end users. And the goal here is to understand the people and the problem you're designing for. The next phase is synthesize and generate solutions. Here you will generate a variety of ideas that focus on the needs and desires of your end users that you discovered during your first phase. Jessica will take you through an exercise in design thinking, which actually falls under this phase, synthesize and generate solutions. The next phase is conceptualize and prototype. And this is where you're evaluating the ideas from your prior phase for merit and to create a tangible version of the best idea that can be used to validate the usefulness of that idea, product, whatever that may be. Our next step here is once we have a prototype built, we're going to need to test and iterate that prototype. So in this phase, you're getting the prototype into the hands of your end users. You're taking their experience and feedback, and you're using that to improve your prototype. And then finally, we're going to get into the implement and refine stage. So once your design has proven itself with the end users, it can be launched and monitored for real-world success. So this is a very high-level idea of human-centered design and the phases that you kind of go through during this. So I'm going to now go through our project now that you have kind of that background. So the Division of Child Support was fortunate to be part of a pilot study exploring the viability of human-centered design and addressing complex problems that face the public sector of human services programs. We embarked on this journey with 2 other sites. It was with Denver Human Services and Santa Clara County Social Services. We were the only child support agency that was in this pilot. So I was really fortunate to be able to work with a wonderful group of hardworking team members throughout the entire project. So I just want to take a moment to recognize the folks that put in just a ton of hard work into this project. There's also another person who's not pictured here that I want to acknowledge, which is Rachel Jennings, who works within the Division of Child Support's strategic planning. She has been really invaluable in helping us get this project finished. So the project objectives, we set out to accomplish 2 things, and that was to learn the human-centered design methodology. And then the second was to find ways to keep our parents engaged through our court order modification process. So that was kind of the problem we were looking to tackle. What we have found as an agency is that most parents drop off in the court order modification process after they request the modification documents. So they'll call their caseworker, ask for the documents, we send it to them, and then we don't hear back from them. We don't get forms back from them or anything, which prevents us from moving forward with that modification process. So we wanted to address that and see if there was a way to help get parents to return those documents back to us. So we're going to start with our research and discover phase. During this time, we conducted focus groups with our caseworkers. We researched what was being done by other states, and we conducted interviews with our customers. The goal here was to understand the people and problems we were designing for. We were encouraged to challenge our assumptions and biases by going to the source and being open to what we heard, which of course is different than how government generally operates, which is with the assumption that we know what our customers need without ever asking them what they need. So we heard over and over again that most of the challenges with the modifications have to do with the paperwork. To give folks some context, our court order modification packet is 31 pages long. Of those 31 pages, 14 pages are instructions. So probably a little daunting, as you can imagine, getting that packet as somebody who's not familiar with the legal system. So customers receive the paperwork and they see that it's going to take a substantial amount of time and may put it aside. We also heard that customers had anxiety over completing the paperwork correctly. And this is despite our best efforts of telling customers to complete the information to the best of their abilities. We're telling customers it doesn't have to be perfect. We just need something here. And finally, the people who needed the modification the most generally had the most barriers and made it difficult to engage in the process. So in interviewing our customers, this really was one of the most enlightening parts of the process. And some of the surprising things we found were that customers had a deep desire to have a tracking mechanism for their modification. And where it is in the modification process. One of our customers made the comparison to the VA system, where they said they were able to track the forms that were submitted and where it was in the process. Customers did not think to go to our website for information about modifications. Their first reaction was to Google what they were looking for, which led to, of course, a variety of places of information with variety of helpful and useful information. When we asked what their advice would be to a friend going through the modification process, the overwhelming response was to get an attorney. Customers didn't expect to receive information about their modification in the mail. They expected a phone call or email. This was especially poignant information to receive at the time because the reliability of the US mail was degraded. So this was during COVID when we had a lot of the US mail issues. So that might give a little bit of background to that. And kind of what we were saying earlier, customers felt that if they didn't get their modification paperwork exactly right, the process would be stopped. And like I said earlier, this is in contrast to what we were telling customers while we were trying to help them with the paperwork. So our next phase here was to synthesize and generate solutions. There are several methods you can use during this phase. We decided to utilize the design thinking workshops. So we held 7 2-hour workshop sessions over a 2-week period. We had a mix of participants, which included caseworkers, customers, county prosecutors, Department of Corrections, and other community partners. The design thinking workshop is a set of techniques and methods for quickly generating innovative ideas for human-centered solutions. So the goal of these sessions was to generate as many ideas as we could without restriction. We were encouraged to use a yes and mindset in response to ideas. So kind of that improv mindset, yes and, not the no but, which of course was difficult for those of us that worked for the agency because we're in government and we see a lot of stops and issues. But it was really good for us. The workshops were really productive and our participants were engaged throughout the entire process. The early workshop sessions were focused on ideation and included both individual and group brainstorming, which resulted in some actually really cool ideas. We ended up with both technical ideas and non-technical ideas. Some of these ideas would have required a lot more work and some would be easier to implement. And as mentioned earlier, Jessica is going to walk us through a design thinking exercise a little bit later. And so you'll get a little bit better idea of what these design thinking sessions might look like. So on to our conceptualize and prototype phase. At this stage, we were evaluating ideas for merit and creating a tangible version of the best idea that we could to validate its usefulness. One of the main principles of human-centered design is to have a bias towards action. So for us, this was key to moving forward with ideas that we could launch, which kept us from trying to fix all the problems at the same time. It meant that we just needed to move on an idea that we were ready to, or that we felt was a good fit. So we had, like I said, really good ideas, and it was hard to let them go. We considered concepts like creating a resource for visual learners, putting a resource packet in with the modification paperwork, working with our DSHS webmaster to make changes to our website, creating a TurboTax-like problem or a program that would walk our customers through completing the forms, and monthly modification workshops. So with these ideas, we put them through an impact and feasibility assessment. And after a lot of discussion, evaluation, and research, we decided on a solution that we believed would touch a lot of the key themes from the ideas generated. So we also took into consideration that one of our project goals was to learn human-centered design. And we wanted to choose an idea that we had the most control over. And by that, I mean, we didn't need help outside of our agency. So we didn't have to wait for the DSHS webmaster to get to our request. It was something that we could control. And that we felt that we had a reasonable time frame to get through. This was like I mentioned earlier, a project. So there was a limited time frame that we had to work in. So we also wanted something that was doable within that time frame. So we moved on to the test and iterate phase. During this phase, we wanted to get the prototype in the hands of our end users so we could see, so we could use their experience to further improve our product. So our team decided to create a video that walked our customers through completing one of the most complicated forms in that packet, which is the financial declaration. And our hope was that by using the most difficult form first, we could use that as a template moving forward to save time as we were looking to do this with the other forms in that packet. So we went through 4 rounds of testing. The first round was completed with our staff that were part of a training team beta tester group. We received a lot of great feedback, and that feedback validated that the prototype was good. This, as was mentioned earlier, is a very rough draft of what's going on. The video was minimal animation to it. The voice was computer generated versus a voiceover. But, we didn't want to put a lot of time into something that wasn't going to solve the problem. So our second round of feedback was with our customers. We called customers who had received the modification paperwork within the last 2 weeks and asked if they would be willing to watch a video and answer a survey for a small gift card. While many customers agreed, only 7 actually responded, and none of our open-ended survey questions were completed. We received validation that the video was helpful, but no feedback that could help us iterate the prototype. So for our third round, we actually, again, contacted customers as well as one of our DOC partners and asked them to watch the video with us and answer questions during the video. We had a better response, but the turnout was still felt pretty low. The feedback from these participants were much more useful and helped us with iterating our prototype. And the fourth round was, again, a lot like the third. We reached out to customers, watched the video with them, asked questions during the video, and were able to use that information to iterate further on our video. There we go. So we are currently in our implement and refine stage. We have the video completed. What we are working on now is getting it uploaded to the DSHS YouTube page. We have an email address that will be monitored where customers can send feedback on the video. We're also working on translating the transcript so that the closed caption can be turned on in different languages. And we're also working on getting the form translated into 5 of the most common languages. And we'll have a link there so people can get to the form in the needed language from that video and can follow along in that translated form with the video. We're going to be adding a link to the video on our modifications page on our website, and we're hoping to distribute the video to our community partners as a resource they can use when working with their customers. And the other thing that we're looking to do is down the road, we're hoping to be able to add a QR code to the cover page of the modification packet that will take customers directly to the videos. We're still working through some technical aspects of the QR code. Kind of the major one being that we need QR codes that will update as that video updates. So we need basically an active QR code, not a static one. But we're still working on that end of things, but that is kind of the ultimate goal there. So we had some big aha moments for us, and that was kind of the customers didn't expect modification documents or updates by the PROS to be sent via USPS. Procedural justice and fairness was a common theme we heard from our customers. One of the things we also heard was when it benefits you, as in the agency, it happens automatically, but when it benefits us, there is a lot of paperwork and the process is slow. And our customers didn't think to contact their caseworker when they needed to ask help for modification, even if they had questions about completing the paperwork. Okay, so if you're looking at the PowerPoint that was published earlier, you'll see there's a few more. I've narrowed these down to kind of our top 5 to help save space on the slide and some time. So our top 5 helpful tips and tricks from the project was recruit more customers than you think you need. Customer participation has been one of our biggest frustrations and barriers in completing this project. We find that we have enthusiastic agreement at the beginning, but we tend to lack on the follow through from our customers' end. Leverage your partners in obtaining customer participation. The prosecutor was really helpful in getting participants for us, as well as other community partners. Use gift cards. It does truly help with customer participation rates. We didn't really have a process in place prior to this project, kind of a tertiary result of this project is that ESA now has a process for using gift cards to gather customer feedback. And that was a direct result from this project. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. It's a good reminder not to get too attached to the solution, because it may change, and it may change several times. And that is kind of our project share. I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome, Garrett. Before I tell everyone to mute their mics with questions, I did notice a question in the chat. Give me 2 seconds. How will you measure the success of the new form and video?
Yeah, so that's a difficult one, because we're looking at more documents being returned. And unfortunately, it's not specific to just this form. It's the whole package being delivered. So what we can look at is kind of return rates overall of documents being returned to us. But it will be a hard one to gauge, and that's something we'll kind of look into further here on our end. I would also say too that yes, it would be nice to have more of the documents returned. It is also a resource though, and resources don't always necessarily mean a higher return. But if it's there for our customers to make this process easier for them, then it's done its job.
Very good. Thank you. A comment was, share this video with 211 or other places, nonprofits that social workers may go to assist clients with. They also said prisons share psychiatric social workers. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
I would love to get the video out to as many people as we can. The main place that it will live is it will actually be on the DSHS YouTube page, but it will be able to be found through the Division of Child Support's page, through DSHS in the modifications section. And then we will be, like I mentioned earlier, sending the video out to our community partners that we work with regularly, and hopefully that will spread, and they'll continue to share it with their partners and people that they work with. And hopefully it gets all over the place. That's what we would like.
Very cool. I'm going to read a couple other questions. I'm also going to encourage folks to jump off mute if you want to let your voice be heard. We totally want to hear from you, but let's see. There's a couple other questions in here. It sounds like you had barriers to simplify the paperwork itself. Is simplifying the form still on the table? What barriers did you face for simplifying the paperwork?
So the paperwork is not something we can simplify because it is not an agency form. These forms are owned by the courts. So it would actually be up to the Washington court system it'd be up to the pattern form committee to make a change to that form. So because we couldn't change the form, we needed to work within the confines of what we had, and this was kind of the best solution.
Got it. That makes sense. Thank you. Next question. What was the time frame from the initial discovery phase to the initial testing minimum viable product?
So I would say we got through that in 3 to 4 months.
All right, cool. Oh gosh, okay. Let's see. Okay, I see Megan has her hand up. Hold on. I'm going to ask this one last question and then give it to y'all. Could state employees be a resource to give feedback on the existing and proposed processes? Sounds like the paperwork is lengthy and a new set of eyes may give additional insight.
Yeah, so we did engage our staff. For us, it was helpful to engage our staff because they are working with our customers on a daily basis. I supervise a team, so my interaction with our customers is delayed. And if you noticed the folks on the team, we had one person that was regularly working with customers, but the rest of us were not in daily casework. And so engaging our staff was really important. We engaged them in that early phase of that research and discover when we were trying to find out what is going on, what do our customers need, as well as engaging them during that video building process. So it is important to engage our staff, especially, as I say, because a lot of us haven't been in casework for a while.
Good stuff. Okay, well, I'm going in order of these questions, and I see Megan has her hand up. So go ahead and unmute, Megan.
Thanks. Hey, Garrett.
Hey, Megan, great to see you.
Great to see you too. I just want to say, first off, you're doing such great work. I know I used to work with Garrett whenever I worked at DCS, and I recognize a few other names on this webinar, and just want to say this is amazing work that you're doing, trying to center the human, not only in this particular process, but in processes that involve money and kids, which are just really complicated and complex. And so just want to give a quick shout out just for all of this amazing work. My questions for you are around the feasibility assessment. I'd love to learn more around the process that you did to assess the feasibility of your ideas. Who was involved, and I wasn't sure on if the user testing informed a feasibility assessment, vice versa, or both. So just kind of wanted to learn more about the relationship between that. Thanks.
Yeah, so the feasibility assessment was really focused on what we could accomplish. And again, this is a little bit colored by the fact that this was a federal project. So we had a timeline that we had to meet for this project. So that colored a little bit of that feasibility assessment. This was a learning opportunity for our agency. So that also colored a little bit of that feasibility assessment. There are a lot of things we would have liked to do. Some of what kind of drove what we ultimately went with was, is it feasible for us to do this within the time frame or within a reasonable time frame? We certainly, I think, could build a TurboTax-like solution, but that may be years down the road. So we want something that's going to help our customers now. And we've kind of put those other ideas, they're not gone, they're just kind of on a board of, this would be nice to have, and we're going to keep this in mind as we look at other IT solutions that are coming along. So these will be things that we'll ask our IT folks about later on. So that's kind of what went into that one. I hope that helps. Perfect.
Awesome. I see a few more hands up. Let's go with Michael.
Hi, Garrett. So I'm a big fan of anything is better than nothing, and I appreciate what you're doing. So this question is not meant to put you on the spot, but I'm interested in, what steps did you take to make sure that the people you were hearing from represented the population you were trying to serve? So how many people did you interview? What stratification did you do, if any, and how did you select participants?
Sure. Yeah, not a problem. Thank you for that question, Michael. So what we did is we worked on a parameter. So I pulled out of, because I supervise out of the Tacoma field office. So we pulled out of the Tacoma field office pool of cases. The nice thing for the Division of Child Support is our caseloads are statewide. So a caseworker in Tacoma may have a parent that lives across the state or in Yakima. So we're not like in the old days, it's not that the Seattle field office had King County only. So we're a little more diverse out that way. Because of the limitation of the project timeline, what we did is we pulled those cases that had that request within the prior 2 weeks, and we just went down the list and started calling folks. There was no concerted effort to look at demographic information of those parents. It worked out well in that we had a pretty good split of non-custodial parents and custodial parents. It just happened to be that's how it turned out as we were calling people. But yeah, I think in the future we would like to put a little more emphasis on that. But again, with the constraints of this project timeline, we were kind of just busting through and getting as many folks as we could. The other thing that we've also found and have been told by our coaches is that when gathering feedback, once you get about 7 to 10 feedback sessions from folks, you start to find that the feedback is pretty repetitive beyond that 10. You may every once in a while get something new out of the people beyond the 10, but by and large, it will be a lot of the same feedback.
So I would argue that if you're randomly selecting from a population, that may be true. But if you talk to 5 people who all are in your little area and look like you, that will not be true. So
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate your answer. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, let's go with Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie.
Hi, Garrett. It's been a minute since I've talked to you from being at DCS, but I wondered, so right now, would this go out on like an attachment memo, a link, or advising them to go until you get the QR code, or how are they informing customers now about using the resources on the website?
Yeah, so a lot of that will be mostly through communication with our community partners. I don't know if there's a plan at the moment to add a note or something to the cover page of that packet advising people. I think having it on YouTube is going to help because of the discoverability of YouTube to find information like that. So hopefully that will help a little bit. But yeah, there's, we'll have it on our website, but obviously, as we mentioned, the website was not exactly our customers' first thought to go to. So yeah, there will need to be some more work on how we get that information out to our customers. But at least right now, the hope is that by sharing with community partners and getting it to our website and then up to YouTube, it will become easier to find.
Great. Well, it's awesome project. Definitely
you.
needed. So interested to see the outcome.
Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. We do have a few other unanswered questions in the chat. I'm going to capture those, send them to you, and see if we can get those answers out to the folks who sent those questions in.
Sounds good.
But now it is time for Jessica's activity. So thank you so much, Garrett. That was